morning. I'm Jasmine Turner, and thank you all so much for attending the 7th annual Fresh Start Breakfast. Today we gather to support the work of Central Virginia Legal Aid Society, a nonprofit law firm that helps our most vulnerable neighbors for free. Legal Aid is focused on the most critical needs of their clients, such as housing, employment, health care, and protection from domestic violence. This morning you will get to hear inspiring stories about the impact of this work on the families it helps. And while we're not meeting in person, doing this virtually, we really appreciate you taking the time to participate in this important event. And before we get started, I would like to introduce you to our table captains. It's thanks to their efforts we have a large group tuned in today.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Scottie Brown, and I'm here on a personal basis and on behalf of my law firm. I've helped with the coordination of the Hunt and Andrews Kurth Pro Bono program for the past 12 years, and as part of that position, I've had the honor of working closely with Central Virginia Legal Aid and many of their staff attorneys through Hunton's Church Hill Pro Bono office and our Pro Bono fellowship with CVLAS. I have seen firsthand the impact that legal aid has on Richmond and our low-income members of our community. CVLAS is a light in Richmond, and I'm happy to have my coffee with all of you to support this wonderful organization. I hope we can all learn a little bit more about CVLAS by giving a little bit more of our time when they give so much to our community. Thanks, everyone, and enjoy the morning.
Good morning. I'm Ann Burks, and I want to welcome you to the second virtual Fresh Start Breakfast. Having attended many in-person ones, they were a lot of fun, and I hope you will find this one entertaining, interesting, and helpful also. I volunteered at Legal Aid for years after I retired, and I do support them also with donations each year. Central Virginia Legal Aid performs wonderful services in our community, and today you're going to get to hear some of their clients and lawyers talk about their real-life experiences. I hope you will be as inspired as I have been in the past, and at the end that you can also donate to Central Virginia Legal Aid. Thanks for listening and watching.
Good morning. My name is Steffi Canada. Thank you so much for taking a moment of your time to watch this inspiring video. Central Virginia Legal Aid Society is an organization very dear to my heart. The work that they do in our community is incredibly vital. The lawyers and support staff who work there are truly unsung heroes. Thank you so much to everyone who's at my table. I really appreciate it. I'm so grateful. It means the world to me that you're joining us today. And please consider making a donation, however great or small. It would mean the world to CVLAS. Cheers to justice for all.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Central Virginia Legal Aid Society virtual breakfast. Stephanie Grana from the law firm of Bright, Cantor, Grana, and Buckner. A friend of mine gave me this mug, and I thought that I would remind everyone that if there's anything that you need to say, remember to unmute yourself. And I think that we can also change that motto to something that is near and dear to our heart because you're all here this morning, but Central Virginia Legal Aid Society. It's a wonderful organization. It helps women and children, other members of our community who are in need of civil litigation services, whether it is a housing issue, a creditor issue, a domestic violence issue, something that requires legal assistance that they can't afford, potentially a court date that they may not have even known was coming up on the calendar. The attorneys at Central Virginia Legal Aid can help. However, we can also help by adding donations, potentially assistance. There is a wonderful website that you can look at to see where your assistance is needed. But as a table captain of the event today, I appreciate your presence here today, even though it's virtual and not in person. I had so hoped that this event would be in person so that we could all be sitting around a table, sharing a cup of tea, coffee, juice, and just hanging out with one another, catching up. And then the speakers that Central Virginia Legal Aid presents, and I presume we will be having that by virtual today as well, by video. are amazing persons, and they share stories of how attorneys from Central Virginia Legal Aid have helped them and literally changed their lives. So I'm hoping that we can all support Central Virginia Legal Aid. Again, I appreciate your presence, albeit virtual, this morning, and I hope that y'all have a great day, a great week. And on behalf of myself and Central Virginia Legal Aid, I thank you for being here. Have a great day.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for Central Virginia Legal Aid Society's Fresh Start Breakfast. I hope you have been able to kick up your feet and have a cup of coffee. For those of you who already know me, I do not need to introduce myself, but for the rest of you, I am Heather Hayes-Lockerman. I have been practicing in the Richmond area for almost 20 years. And I have been a board member at CVLAS for going on 5 years. It is an amazing organization. As you will hear from the lawyers and other folks at CVLAS who are on the front lines, from our clients, they really will do better at telling our story than anyone else. And it means so much to me that you are here today to listen. As we near the end of our time together today, you will be asked to make a donation. And I encourage you to please give if and as you are able. The donations are what really help us to do the transformational work that is being done in our community in the Central Virginia area. We also always appreciate volunteers. So if you are interested in giving of your time and talent, I encourage you to go to the website, cvlas.org, or you are welcome to call me and I can put you in touch with folks. And certainly if you have any questions about the organization, I would love to talk with you about it more. Again, thank you and enjoy the rest of your morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Melanie Friend. I'm with Cowan Gates, and I also have the pleasure of serving as the current president of the Greater Richmond Bar Foundation, a nonprofit who in part works to provide a support system to supplement the efforts of legal aid attorneys with pro bono volunteer attorneys. Support of legal aid is so important because of the huge impact and valuable services they provide to our community. And in addition to the pro bono volunteer aspect, it is equally important to provide financial assistance to CVLAS for those of us who can. They work tirelessly to ensure that the justice gap closes and that everyone in our community has equal access to the courthouse. I would like to thank all of our attendees this morning for being here and for supporting legal aid. And I would also really like to thank the legal aid clients who were kind and generous enough with their time to come here this morning and share their stories with us. Their stories are so important, and they provide an excellent reminder of why legal aid's mission is so critical to our community.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, I'm Barb Lamb with the Apple Cart Company. I am really excited to be here this morning with all of you to learn alongside about all the great services offered by the Central Virginia Legal Aid Society, and just to enjoy some coffee and biscotti with you all. So welcome, and I look forward to learning more.
Good morning, and welcome to the Fresh Start Breakfast. My name is Ali Silva, and it is my honor and pleasure to serve as a table captain this year. Central Virginia Legal Aid Society holds a very special place in my heart, and I think after you hear from the staff, the attorneys, and the clients today, it will hold a special place in yours. Legal aid is a critical organization in every state, but none so much as in Richmond, where we have one of the highest eviction rates in the country. Legal aid uses very wisely their resources and their staff to serve all they can, but they just need our help. They do work that is impressive, the staff is committed, and I know you're going to be moved by the stories of the clients that they help. But again, they need our help. So thank you for joining me today. It's my pleasure to be a table captain, and I do hope by the end of it, you join me in donating and supporting such a great cause. Thanks.
Thank you again to all of the table captains for their support. This is the 7th annual Fresh Start Breakfast, and while we're missing each other's company again this year, our purpose for coming together is the same. We want to share with you the importance of legal aid and ask for financial support to continue the work of CVLAS in the community. Over 1/4 of the residents of Richmond, Charlottesville, and Petersburg live with household incomes that are at or below the poverty line. This is almost double the national average, which is 13.1%. More than 1/3 of the children in Central Virginia live in households below this poverty threshold, and nearly 25% of working-aged women are below the line. Studies show that 71% of low-income households have experienced at least one civil legal problem in the past year. Many of these households have had to deal with several issues. Indeed, more than half, about 54%, faced at least 2 civil legal problems, and about 1 in 4 has faced 6 or more in the past year alone. The civil legal problems these Virginians face are most often related to basic needs like getting access to health care, staying in their homes, and securing safe living conditions for their families. It's no surprise, then, that many of these individuals and families, often those in the most dire of circumstances, end up finding their way to Central Virginia Legal Aid Society. The vast majority of legal aid clients are women and head of their household. These are individuals who are not only struggling to keep their families afloat, but are encountering legal barriers, often through no fault of their own. The representation provided by legal aid levels the playing field so that everyone has access to justice. Each eviction or foreclosure prevented not only keeps a family in their home, but it saves our community from the social costs of homelessness and the long-term impacts it has on children. Each time legal aid assists a family with public benefits, it helps the family put food on the table and increases the dollars being spent in the local community and economy. Each low-income child who has access to the educational supports they are entitled to by the Commonwealth of Virginia's Constitution will not only have better educational outcomes, but they will be more likely to access higher education and be less likely to become involved in the judicial system. COVID-19 has dramatically increased the challenges for low-income people with loss of jobs, the threat of eviction in a pandemic, a rise in domestic violence, and difficulty in obtaining or maintaining affordable health insurance. Almost all of CVLAS's current cases are impacted by COVID-19. And when I think about my interactions with Central Virginia Legal Aid Society, as we at NBC 12 News work to inform our community, educate our community, and provide them with resources through our reporting, I have had the opportunity to interview and interact with lawyers through Legal Aid Society. And I also work in our On Your Side Investigators Unit, doing consumer investigations, but also helping with our Call 12 Center. Our Call 12 Center is where multiple times a week for 90 minutes in the morning and 90 minutes in the evening, people can call in, ask questions, and give us story ideas. But many times, and pretty much every time we ask, the Legal Aid Society says yes to manning Call 12 in order to help answer questions. Most recently, we've been getting a lot of questions about evictions and preventing evictions and foreclosures and what can people do to protect themselves and their family. And so Legal Aid has always stepped in to say yes, to be that resource to the people who need it most. And taking a moment to thank the sponsors of this event, Commonwealth sponsors, Hunton, Andrews, Kurth, and McGuire Woods. Good morning sponsor, Allen, and Rise and Shine sponsors, Bright Cantor and Harmon Clater Corrigan Wellman. You will now be hearing from Steve Dickinson, Executive Director of CVLAS, who will tell us more about the organization and introduce guest speakers.
Good morning. My name is Steve Dickinson, and I'm an attorney and the Executive Director of Central Virginia Legal Aid Society. Thank you very much for joining us this morning at this Fresh Start Breakfast. I wish we could be in person, but I'm hoping that this makes sure that everybody is safe. In my 30-year career with legal services, a lot of people have asked me a couple of questions. First, what is legal aid? And second, why did you choose that as your career? In brief, legal aid is a nonprofit law firm that represents low-income people for free in civil cases. Our clients are your neighbors. They are people who work. They are disabled people. They are the elderly. They just can't afford a lawyer. And we represent them in cases that are critical to their life needs, such as housing and food and safety and health care. We provide these services at no cost to their own and therefore depend upon donations and government funding to keep our services going. Today you will hear from two of our attorneys and several of our other staff about work they do to help people in this important work. As to why I became a legal aid attorney, that has something to do with my personal politics, and not the kind of politics that's represented by our current political parties. It has more to do with my beliefs in what America is about. One of the most critical, important parts, I believe, of America is the concept of equal justice under the law. Equal justice is one of the first and most important parts of the preamble to our Constitution. It is the last thing that every student says in the Pledge of Allegiance each morning. It is a fundamental part of what America is about. But equal justice cannot happen without equal access to the courts. Many of you may say, but doesn't our system provide an attorney when you can't afford one? Yes, it does, but only in criminal cases. Therefore, if you're facing an eviction or foreclosure, or you're a victim of domestic violence, or a veteran who's been denied his benefits, you do not have a right to an attorney unless you can afford one. Legal aid fills this gap, but those same studies show that legal aid and all of its pro bono partners can only serve about 20% of the actual need of poor people in this country. Therefore, we need your help to narrow the justice gap and make the ideal of justice for all a reality in our country. I have been given the privilege to make a difference, and I have taken that. Now you have that chance as well. Thank you very much again for joining us this morning. Thank you to all our sponsors who help us continue the work we do. And here's looking forward to meeting in person next year.
Hi, my name is Rhonda Earhart. I am an attorney with Central Virginia Legal Aid. My title is Chesterfield Domestic Violence Attorney. I am part of our Victim Advocacy Services, which we offer in all three of our local offices in Petersburg, Charlottesville, and Richmond. We have several partner agencies that many of our attorneys work with that involve housing and medical partnerships. My program partners with the Domestic and Sexual Violence Resource Center, which falls under Chesterfield Community Corrections. It is led by Lindsay Cassida. We have 2 full-time advocates and a full-time clinician. And those are people that I work with on a daily basis. It's where we get a number of our referrals for my program. Whenever anyone comes in to apply for a protective order in Chesterfield, immediately they meet with one of our advocates. And if the client seems like they might be eligible for legal aid services, we then refer them to our awesome paralegal, Anne, who does their intake, collects their information, and then refers the case on to me. One of the clients that I was asked to speak about, who has a pretty compelling story, I believe, and is a wonderful client, her name is Trance Wiggins-Hewlett. She was actually just in court with me this past week on Tuesday, seeking a protective order. Her case is a little bit unusual in some respects. in that she is married to a law enforcement officer from another jurisdiction. So over the course of about a 4 to 5 year marriage, she had been subjected to different levels of physical abuse, some that resulted in some injuries, which fortunately she kept documentation of. Just prior to her coming in to apply for the protective order, there had been an incident in the home in late September where it's alleged that her husband has substance abuse issues. He had been drinking, grabbed her by the hair. She made attempts to try to get his mother to come and pick him up, and when that failed, she called the police. She had not had positive experiences with the police in the past, and which I attribute possibly to just the difficulty with trying to prosecute and trying to have law enforcement take action against another member of the law enforcement community. So she hadn't had really very good experiences with that. I was pretty amazed at her story because another sort of different feature of her set of circumstances were that a number of events with her husband had actually taken place in public, which is kind of unusual. A lot of times our domestic violence survivors just don't have documentation. They don't have injuries that they necessarily recorded or took a picture of. They don't always have evidence to present other than their own story. And in her situation, she actually had witnesses. She had family members that witnessed things. She had friends that witnessed things. He had, and this had happened, I believe, in the past year. It had been almost a year ago. She was driving on 95, had a friend with her in the car. Her husband attempted to run her off the road. She was able to get back to a safe place, and then immediately following that, literally the next night, she was at a restaurant in Chesterfield County. He came in, he knocked a drink out of her hands, and then proceeded to go to the parking lot and bust out almost all of her car windows. So in that situation, he didn't actually place his hands on her, but he had this very public display of aggressiveness. So we fortunately were able to get witnesses. A lot of times in protective order cases, we're dealing with a very short period of time from when the person comes in to apply for a protective order and they get that ex parte preliminary protective order. We have a trial within 15 days after that. So there's not always time to subpoena witnesses. In this case, Janae is actually a good example of a client who really demonstrates the partnership that the client should have with the attorney in trying to prepare the case. And so in Janae's case, I had a very good client to work with in the respect that she was able to get me phone numbers, names, and what they would testify to. So I was able to simply, call the witnesses, prepare the case in an efficient manner, I'll say. We were able to secure a 2-year protective order for her. As I mentioned, the most recent event, a lot of times courts are very focused, which the statute tends to lean toward what has happened, what is making the domestic violence survivor at that moment in fear or apprehension of immediate dangerousness or fear for their health, their safety, physical harm, things like that. So a lot of times you have events that have happened over the course of the past 2 or 3 years that in time aren't really close to the event that may have prompted them to come in and apply for a protective order. And that was Janae's case. So she'd had this incident, she called the police came, she said he had pulled her by her hair, and the police unfortunately just said, maybe you guys should just separate for the evening, didn't take any other action. And his mother ended up coming and picking him up that night. But I was concerned going into the hearing that most of what I believed were the most egregious offenses that she'd been subjected to over the past year had all occurred in November and December primarily of last year. So in presenting her case, I even acknowledged to the judge that yes, if you look at this one incident that's isolated, it may not rise to the level of this client needs a protective order. But when you look at it over the course of what she's been subjected to over the past 2 to 3 years, and fortunately was able to get in some of these other events that occurred, that I think was, compelling to the court. And interestingly enough, fortunately we also had a great judge who has practiced formally in family law and criminal law, so he was well familiar with juvenile court. That's not always the case, that we have judges that have practiced and worked with domestic violence in the past, but he said, well, pulling her hair obviously is family violence and does meet the statute of abuse. So, that was kind of a learning point for me that yes, it may seem somewhat, I don't want to say insignificant, but less compelling compared to other things she may have been subjected to that occurred prior to that event. And so in this case, as I mentioned, we were able to get a 2-year protective order for Tranae. It's extremely, a case like hers just really stands out because it's extremely rewarding because she was up against barriers that other survivors aren't necessarily up against, and the primary one being that she's married to somebody in law enforcement. And so if a protective order gets granted against her husband, he can no longer carry a weapon under the laws concerning firearms and protective orders. So he would assumingly be placed on leave, or would, ultimately is going to lose his job most likely. So that was a significant potential obstacle, is we had somebody that was going to come in and fight very hard against a protective order, and we fortunately were able to secure one for her. Fortunately, Central Virginia Legal Aid has a number of different grants that we are provided that help financially make our work possible, but we certainly also very desperately need financial assistance from the community. We have a number of organizations and law firms, corporations, and individuals from a very grassroots level that provide financial support to our organization and make it possible for us to do what we do. We really appreciate that, and without it, it wouldn't be possible. We have many requests for representation, not only for protective orders, but for custody and visitation, child support, spousal support, and divorces for typically it's women that are involved as survivors of domestic violence. And we just want to thank you. We appreciate your support, and you make it possible for us to do what we do.
Hi, my name is Trance Wiggins-Hewlett. I am a client of Miss Rhonda Earhart. She represents the CVLAS, the Central Virginia Legal Aid Society, and we work together in Chester. I'll kind of give you a little rundown of what went on. I was in a domestic abuse situation. I was married for a few years. Unfortunately, things took a turn where I had to get a protective order in place for my safety. And when I went to get the protective order, they set me down with someone who works for the legal aid. Her name was Jessica. She was really nice. She was very well prepared. She actually talked to me for a long time, got my nerves down, and then she connected me with Rhonda Earhart. And after that, we kind of talked here and there. And then right before the court date, we spoke more in depth and got down to all the details. And when we went to court, she was very professional. She got it taken care of. It was almost like a breeze for her. She's been doing this for a long time. She was able to calm me down. I was very nervous and anxious throughout the whole process because it is a hard process being with someone, and then things like this happen and you have to go through the court and get legal help. So it's very nerve-wracking. And Miss Earhart and her colleagues, they were able to calm me down and almost make everything a breeze, as if I really didn't have to do much. She well prepped me. I had many questions. I had so many questions, and she answered all of them with a breeze. There was never an issue. I could tell that she could tell that I was nervous and anxious, which is why she was, more on the nurturing side, because this is a hard process. No one wants to go through it alone. And, us as civilians, we don't really know much about the law and, how we can get protected. And she was able to tell me everything there is to know and get it taken care of for me. After court, the protective order was granted for 2 years. My ex, he was a police officer, so that was very, that was a hard place to be, but while we were in court, she represented me very well. She was able to let me speak. When the judge had questions, she directed me and led me. To be honest, it was the easiest, most hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. It was something I didn't want to do, but it needed to be done. And Rhonda made it so easy for me. The words cannot begin to describe how I feel about Rhonda. I've only known her for 2 weeks, and I feel like, she's a really good person. Overall, she cares about her clients. When you go into legal situations like this, you think you're not going to be heard. You think that, your voice doesn't matter. But when you have someone like Rhonda, who is strictly for the people and by the people and want to help me get protected and whatnot, she was able to do that for me, get it taken care of without a breeze. It was a breeze. There was no issues. It was just a really good journey for me, even though it was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. I am very happy to be working with them. She even advised me because, this isn't like a one-time process. There's many things that need to be done, especially when there's children involved, property and things like that. So she actually is guiding me through my custody case, my domestic assault case. She's actually helping me through all of that. She's given me resources, people I can talk to. She's given me a whole pamphlet of hotline numbers to call if I ever need anything. She's left the door open that I can contact her anytime, whether it's 8 o'clock in the morning or 10 p.m. at night and my mind can't stop racing. I'm able to contact her, and she does a really good job with contacting me back, getting everything done with, addressing every issue and above and beyond. There was questions that I should have asked that I didn't know I should ask, but she told me, hey, these questions are going to come up. This is how you handle it. If this is how you feel, this is how you say you feel. She kind of guided me step by step by step. There was not a time where I felt this isn't going to work. I don't feel like, this is going to work in my favor. I don't think anything. There wasn't a time that I had that slight breeze of, regret or anything else. She kind of cleared everything up for me. She made the clarity was a big thing for me, because when you go through these situations, you have many questions and whatnot. And me, with the type of person I am, it's all about deliverance, how you deliver what you say. Her delivery was 100% spot on every single time. I asked her a question. She immediately had an answer. She never missed a beat. And it got to the point where I was actually intrigued with Miss Earhart, where I, wanted to ask her questions. How long have you been doing this? What are some situations you've been in? Because I was really intrigued with this woman who don't know me, but I feel like she really wants to protect me. So I really feel like she's on my side the whole way. And it was just an amazing experience for the unforeseen, the sad circumstance.
Good morning. My name is Janae Craddock. I'm a housing law attorney here at Central Virginia Legal Aid Society. When I started working at CVLAS in 2019, Richmond had the second highest eviction rate in the nation. We didn't think it could get any worse than that. And then came COVID in March of 2020. A lot of our tenants and a lot of people in the Richmond area experienced great loss of jobs, loss of family members, and just kind of a loss of sense of normalcy. And as a housing law attorney, I really didn't know what was going to come of it. It was a great unknown. But interestingly, in the height of this pandemic, Virginia was able to pass the strongest tenant protections ever. And also, the tenants here in Virginia were able to get a lifeline that they've never received before. Since July of 2020, the attorneys at CVLAS and our staff have assisted our clients with obtaining rental assistance. And with the infusion of more money into the rental assistance funds, as well as the increased need that we are seeing, CVLAS partnered with Housing Opportunities Made Equal to hire 3 rent relief navigators. And their sole job is to assist our clients and the tenants in our service area primarily, and our goal is to assist those who are in underserved, marginalized, traditionally low income areas, basically our most vulnerable community members and tenants, to have access to the millions of dollars that are available in the state's rental assistance fund. As an attorney who practices housing law, I've seen firsthand the barriers that can be in place for those people who don't have the internet access or just don't have the wherewithal or the know-how to fill out those forms that's needed to obtain the assistance. Today, you will hear from 2 of our 3 rent relief navigators who help people complete the documents, will help them speak to their landlords in an effort to complete an application and have them successfully approved for the program. In my experience, without that assistance, many of our tenants and those who need our help the most would find themselves facing homelessness when they don't have to and there is money available.
Hi everyone, my name is Galvan and I am the Rent Relief Facilitator in the Petersburg office at CVLAS. I first just wanted to thank everyone for watching and for providing support to CVLAS. I am a recent UVA grad and I have been working in our Petersburg office for almost 2 months now. So I mainly work with tenants in the Petersburg, Colonial Heights, Hopewell area, as well as assisting Spanish-speaking tenants in both the Richmond and Petersburg areas. I think that the biggest current takeaway from the rent relief program and the work that I have been doing is the massive demand that we are seeing for people who are needing rental assistance. Within only about 2 months, I have already been contacted by nearly 70 community members seeking rental assistance. Many of the clients I am working with are facing great and lasting repercussions from the COVID-19 pandemic, including being laid off, being unable to find work, or dealing with increased costs, be that utility, medical, or food costs. So I think this makes clear that the way in which our community is still dealing with the repercussions of the pandemic. I have found that rent relief program facilitators, such as myself, are really vital to ensuring that our tenants can be able to take full advantage of the rent relief program. The vast majority of the tenants that I have been working with have little to no access to computers or printers, making it very difficult for them to be able to complete this online application on their own. Many of the tenants that I'm working with also don't have a great rapport with their landlords, which kind of leads them to not be able to receive the exact documents that their landlords need to upload in an accurate and timely manner. So So I think that the biggest reason why rent relief program navigators are really necessary is that this program and this application are constantly changing. So every day it feels like we are getting new documents that are needing to be uploaded, new alterations to the online application, which kind of makes it a little bit confusing, not only for us to navigate, but also for tenants. There are also different documents which are needed to be uploaded specific to each individual case. So those can be based on different sources of income, how many people are in different households, and things like that. These documents are not especially clearly outlined on the application, so it makes it a little bit difficult for tenants who are doing the application on their own to kind of know exactly which documents they need to upload in order to get their application processed. I also think rent relief facilitators kind of give our tenants a little bit of a peace of mind that their rent relief applications will be accurately processed and they will receive this assistance that they need a little bit more so than if these tenants were left to just do this application on their own. So all in all, I think that the rent relief program is really trying to get all of this funding out there to our community and to people across Virginia who really do need rent assistance. And the rent relief program facilitators here at Central Virginia Legal Aid Society are really doing our best to kind of assist tenants in any way that we possibly can and to kind of mitigate all of these negative repercussions that we are still seeing from the COVID pandemic.
Good morning, my name is Max Cook, and I'm one of the rent relief facilitators with Central Virginia Legal Aid Society. I work in the Richmond office, and what I do is I help clients apply for the rent relief program through Duval. There's a lot that goes into the rent relief applications. It starts off with an online application. Then once you finish with that, you have to gather a large handful of documents. And for someone who, is requesting this sort of rent relief, that can be a kind of a challenging thing to do while you're trying to keep your head above water elsewhere. So that's where my position comes in, is I help to try and facilitate that. So I start off by helping with the online application. Then I help them gather the documents that they need. In a lot of cases, I'll help them request the documents that are needed from the landlords. And in some cases, I'll end up acting as sort of a go-between for the client and Duval, because a lot of the times, since this is a newer program, there's a lot of changing requirements and moving pieces, and part of my job is to help clients navigate those moving pieces and to help them kind of act as a go-between for them and Duval. Mr. Doggett emailed me toward the beginning of my time here with CVLAS. It was right after my phone number and email had been published in a Richmond Times-Dispatch article. And he emailed me with some questions. And as it went along, we realized that there were more problems than just a few things. So I ended up helping him iron out some of the problems that were going on with the application. I helped him figure out which documents needed to be uploaded. Mr. Doggett works with a rideshare service, and so obviously his livelihood has been hit really hard by the pandemic. Since most rideshare companies list their workers as independent contractors, it can be hard to track down exact proof of income, which is one of the things that the application requires of some people. I was able to help Mr. Doggett talk with Duval and point out that they actually, based on his area and his household size, didn't need to have the income information that they said that they needed, and eventually we were able to get the application approved. Mr. Doggett actually was able to come back again after the first application and resubmit a new application for months going forward. And we had less trouble with that application, and it was submitted and approved.
Hi, my name is Robert. I came to the Virginia Legal Aid Society looking for rent relief help due to COVID issues. My work had been slow and all, and things have been pretty difficult, and my renters referred me over to him, and I got with a guy named Max Cook, and he was very helpful. the Central Aid Society has really been great through all of this situation, and I've been able to get back on my feet a little bit through all of these tough times that have been going on. Pretty much the process, I had to go get some paperwork to fill out, and had to get work through my renters as well. They worked with me on this situation. Just a few forms you got to fill out and get the information to them, and they've done a great job of helping and assisting with the rent relief. The help that I got through this program, I was behind about 3 months on rent. I'm just trying to get caught up, and it just wasn't happening. So I was able to get caught up with this whole process. They got me through where I needed to be to get back on my feet. Things seem to be headed towards the right direction now. I feel like things have gotten a little bit better now. I think everything's headed back on the right track as far as work. Just, being able to catch up after being behind. When you start getting behind on things, it's very difficult and challenging to catch up. And they've done a great job at assisting and getting me caught back up. I would definitely recommend, if you need assistance through the rent relief program, definitely get with the Virginia Central Aid Society. They're very helpful, polite, respectful. They get their job done, and they do everything they can and go all out just to make sure that you get what you need.
As we heard here this morning, legal aid is making a tremendous difference in the lives of individuals and families in Central Virginia. In fact, last year, CVLAS attorneys won judgments and settlements worth more than $2 million, closed more than 4,000 cases, and defended their clients from nearly $4 million in unlawful debt. CVLAS depends on the support of the community to continue this free civil legal assistance that they provide to low-income individuals and families in our service area. For example, $75 buys an hour of legal time at CVLAS. $150 provides 2 hours of community outreach for preventative education, and $300 pays for full representation in an average case with a CVLAS lawyer. Whatever you can give, please support this organization that is so worthy and helps low-income people who deserve the right to an attorney. They may even be your neighbor. Instructions on how to donate are shown on the screen right now. And thank you again to main sponsors Hunton, Andrews, Kurth, and McGuire Woods. Again, Good Morning sponsor Allen, and Rise and Shine sponsors Bright Cantor and Harmon Clater Corrigan Wellman. We hope that you enjoyed this event. Look forward to seeing you next year, maybe in person. Fingers crossed. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.